Okay, so test review for Unit 1.2. There literally are questions like the first couple, not 6 of them, but there are questions like this. So what is 48 as a decimal? Well, remember 48, if it's a whole number, your decimal's at the end. Okay, so percent to decimal means you're going to move the decimal twice to the left, and it becomes 0.48 as a decimal. Whoa. Okay, what is 5% as a decimal? Same concept. Your decimal's here. You move it to the left twice, and remember, any empty loop gets a 0, so it becomes 0.05. .98 as a decimal, 1, 2 becomes 0.98. Now, you can also divide by 100. So on number 1, you could have done 48 divided by 100, gives me the same thing. 5 divided by 100 gives me the same thing. So you can also, when going from percent to decimal, divide by 100. Okay, now when you're going from decimal to percents, that's the opposite. So here we went left with our decimal, here we're going to go right, or you can multiply by 100. Okay, so again, this time we're moving our decimal to the right twice, so right, it gives me 1%. Right, that gives me 60%. Right, that gives me 34%. The ones that you have to be super careful about are number 2 and number 4. Okay, if you plug in 0.5 when it's 5%, you're plugging in 50%, not 5%. So be super careful, yes? Okay, so this is what you get. And again, if you do 0.01 times 100, it gives you 1%. 0.60 times 100 gives you 60%, so on and so forth. So you can multiply by 100 also. If moving the decimal stresses you out, this is what you should do. Okay, 7, 8, and 9, these were the simpler percentage problems. So 7 says the number 137.5. Remember, you set it up as you go. Is means equals 125%. Well, 125 decimals here, move it twice, it becomes 1.25 of what number? Well, we don't know, so that's x. How would I solve this? I would divide both sides by 1.25. This cancels, and I get x equals 137.5 divided by 1.25, which gives me 110. Now, it said what number? Did it say what percent? No, it said number. We already knew the percent, so do not turn this into a percent. Do not put a percent symbol. Okay, that's one thing I saw a lot on that practice. Do not do that. Okay, let's look at the next one. It says the number 59.5 is means equals what percent? This time it did ask me about a percent of 85. Well, how would I solve that? I'm going to divide both sides by 85 because this is multiplying. Remember, of means multiply. That cancels, and I get x equals 59.5 divided by 85. So give me 0.7, okay? But that's not my final answer because this time it did say what percent. So to turn a decimal into a percent, I can either multiply by 100 or move it twice, and I get 70%. Okay, one more like that. It says the number 768 is 60%, which if I move it twice would be 0.60 of what number? So again, divide both sides by 0.60. And this time, again, it's asking for what number, not a percent. 768 divided by 0.60 gives me 1,280. So that's my answer. Do not put a percent symbol. I did not ask for a percent. Okay, so then we have a word problem still with percents. Okay, the price of a small diamond ring was recently increased by 11%. If the ring originally cost $1,900, find the markup and the new price of the ring. Okay, so this one, do we know the original cost? Yeah, originally cost $1,900. We know the original cost. So it's not one of those 1 plus the percent. That's when you know the new cost, not the original. So we have to figure out what it's marked up first. So remember, to do that, you take your original cost times your percent, which is 0.11, and that's going to give you 11% of that. So 1,900 times 0.11 gives me 209. And it says it was increased, so this is your increase. Is your increase in price. That's your markup. So what would be the new price of the ring? How would I figure that out? Yeah, add it to the original price. So 1900 plus 209 is 2109. So this is your money. Any questions with that? Okay. Okay, we did have, do y'all remember when we did literal equations? That's what these are. I know they're not everybody's favorite. Okay, but this says solve for x. So I'm trying to get x by itself. However, we do not move x. We're going to move everything else that's not x on the left side of the equal sign. So knowing that, I'm going to get rid of the y first by subtracting. So minus 2y, because that's a positive 2y. 2y minus 2y is 0. And I'm left with negative 5x equals 7 minus 2y. Okay, now I still have that negative 5 with my x, so they're touching, which means multiplying. And so to get rid of multiplication, I divide. Negative 5 cancels negative 5, and I have x equals, well, 7 over negative 5 does not simplify. 2 negatives makes a positive, so 2y over 5. Remember, we just called this rearranging because it still has all the same things, just in different spots, okay? So the next one says solve for s. Okay, remember you have to get rid of addition and subtraction first. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. And I have r plus 5 equals vst. Remember, we're solving for s. Well, now we have v times s times t. This is multiplication. And how do we get rid of multiplication? We divide. So divide by vt. Divide by vt. And nothing simplifies. I mean, these cancel. So we have s all by itself equals. Now, since nothing simplifies, you can write it as a single fraction. You can write it like this. Or you could have left it just like that. So either of those would be acceptable. That's a t, I promise. So you could also write it like this. Okay, so it says a swimming pool holds 900 cubic meters of water. If the length is 20 meters and its height is 3 meters, find its width. Y'all, this is where, where's my packet? Your formulas will be given to you on your test, so don't forget about that, okay? You don't have to memorize any of these. But if we're talking about a swimming pool and how much water it holds, what are we talking about? It's volume. So volume equals length times width times height. So I know that that is the formula that I'm using. So it says a swimming pool holds 900 cubic meters of water. That is my volume. So remember, we need to know all of these things, all of the letters, to plug in what we know and solve for what we don't. So volume is going to be 900. The length is 20 meters. The height is 3 meters. And it says find the width, meaning we don't know. So we're just going to keep W as W. And I'm going to plug in what I did know. So 900 equals 20 times W times 3. Does order matter with multiplication? No. So what's 20 times 3? So this is what we get. And then we're going to divide both sides by 60. And then I get 900 divided by 60 is 15. So W equals 15. And how do we label it? So if you look, meters, meters. So it's going to be meters. Okay, so then it says a charity 10K race is given annually to benefit a local hospice organization. How long will it take to run/walk a 10K race if your average pace is 125 meters per minute? So first off, it gave me kilometers and meters. Which one are we going to use? Meters. Okay, so this is the one we're going to use because did it say, if it said kilometers, we would worry about this one. So we're going to cross that one out so we don't throw ourselves off. And again, which formula do you think we're going to use? Well, we had a rate, we had a distance, and then it said give time in hours and minutes. So we don't know time. So distance equals rate times time. Distance equals rate times time. Okay, so I know my total distance is 10,000 meters. I know my pace is my same thing as my rate, is 125 meters, and I do not know time. So I'm going to divide both sides by 125. If you're like me and you have to count the zeros to type it in your calculator, please do so. Because if you do one too many or one too few, your answer is going to be one too many zeros or one too few zeros. So the answer is 80. And it says give time in hours or minutes. Well, this says 125 meters per minute. So this is what? Minutes. Now, it says hours and minutes. Well, how many hours is in 80 minutes? 1 hour. And how many minutes is left over?
20.
Okay, that was the older stuff. Now let's flip to the newer stuff. Okay, so we have the tables at the top. Just a reminder, this is investment. This is your motion. And this is your mixture. Okay, so look at your keywords, y'all. The first one says a chemist wishes to strengthen a mixture. Which one are we obviously going to use? The mixture. Okay, so if you need to draw it, which you should, if you're like me and your drawings are just so beautiful, it takes a lot of concentration. Okay, I'm pretty impressed with mine. Probably not the next time. And then I'm going to darken those lines because that's where it changes. So remember, what goes at the top is what you're mixing. What goes at the bottom is what you're creating or what you want. Okay? So this is what we have to mix. And this is what we want to create. That says create really tiny. Okay, so it says a chemist wishes to strengthen a mixture that is 10% alcohol to one that is 40% alcohol. So we're creating the 40% alcohol. Well, again, we have to turn these all into decimals. So 0.10, this is going to be 0.40, and then this is going to be pure. What is pure? Pure is 100%, which is just going to be 1. So we're creating the 40%. I'm going to do a different color. So that's my kind. By mixing the 10%, and then it says how much pure, which is 1. Do not put 0.1 for pure. Pure is 100%, therefore it is just 1. Okay? Therefore it says how much pure. Well, we don't know. It just asked me how much, so I don't know. Should be added to 12 liters of 10%, so this is 12. And then remember, if you're mixing things, you just add the amount, so x plus 12, or 12 plus x. Either way is fine. Now the best part about mixture is once you have that, the rest is pretty simple to solve. So remember, you multiply across to find these. So we have 0.10 times 12, which is 1.2. 1 times x is 1x. And then here we have to distribute because there's a plus sign. So 0 times x is 0.4x, and 0.40 times 12 is 4.8. So remember, we set this up as a math problem. 1.2 plus 1x equals the bottom, so 0.4x plus 4.8. I personally like to always move my smallest variable first, which is 0.4x. So minus 0.4x minus 0.4x. A lot of y'all have been making tiny mistakes when moving your decimals, so make sure you use your calculator. 1 minus 0.4 gives me 0.6. So I have 1.2 plus 0.6x equals 4.8. So now that I have my x alone, I need to move everything that doesn't have an x to the other side. So minus 1.2, minus 1.2, and I get 6.6x equals 3.6. Divide both sides by 0.6. And I get 6. And then I have to read my question. How much pure should be added to 12 liters? So I just want to know pure, which is the 1. And what represents my amount is x. Therefore, it's just 6. And what was my form of measurement? Liters. Okay, the next one says James invested. Right away we know we're going to use the investment table. Okay, so I'm going to draw my table again. I will not be judging y'all on your drawing skills, because if they're anything like mine, I would fail. Okay, so let's look at this one. It says James invested $5,000 at 7%. Does he say he split that $5,000? No, it says $5,000 at 7%, which is 0.07. And 6,500 at 9%. So I don't have any questions about what I'm investing. Okay, what is his annual? Annual means yearly. So So 1 and 1. And it says, what income? Well, income, remember, that's what the I stands for. That's the money you're making. We like this one because it's going to be very simple to solve, like a straight calculator problem. So remember, the way we set these up is you multiply the top row plus the bottom row equals x. So because x is already by itself, y'all, you can literally type the left side in your calculator exactly the way you just wrote it. Plus and so we get x equals 935. And then we have to ask what it's asking. Well, the only thing we don't know is the income, so we can just say $935. Like I said, we like that one. It was very simple to solve. Okay, the next one says 2 cars leave an airport. Okay, so I know that I'm doing motion. Okay. So it says 2 cars leave the airport and travel in opposite directions. So first off, we have an airport. I'm going to label it A. And we have 2 cars leaving and traveling in opposite directions. Okay, one travels 35 miles per hour. And the other one travels 25 miles per hour. They must be in neighborhoods. Okay, and how many hours will the 2 cars be 100 miles apart? We want to know when their total distance apart is 100. Remember, we don't plug in distance into the table. Okay? Does it say time? Well, it tells me 2 cars leave the airport. I'm assuming at the same time because it didn't specify different. And it says in how many hours. So the x is just going to be x and x. Time and time. They left at the same time. So 35 times x is 35x, and that represents this distance. 25 times x is 25x, and that represents this distance. Well, the 2 added together, don't we want to know when they're 100 yards apart? Miles, sorry. So we just do 35x plus 25x equals 100 miles. 35 plus 25, 60, 35 plus 25, yes. So I get 60x equals 100. Divide by 60, divide by 60, and I get x equals 1.6 repeating. Okay, that's not how we answer these questions though. It says in how many hours. Well, the only thing that represents time is x. So this is my answer, but it's not written appropriately for time. Well, the 1 means 1 hour, so I know 1 hour. But we have to figure out minutes. So again, you can type 0.6 all the way across your screen. And as soon as you see the arrow, that means it's going to consider it repeating. And you'll multiply it by 60. And so it's 40 minutes. So 1 hour and 40 minutes. Okay, the next one says how many liters of pure baking soda should be added to 200 liters of 30% baking soda to get a 60% baking soda solution? Well, if we're adding things together, we're mixing them. So we're going to build our mixture table. Kind, amount, kind times amount. So remember, we're going to bold these two lines. Okay, so it says how many liters of pure, remember that's 100%, which is 1 as a decimal, baking soda should be added. So right away I know that I'm adding that with something. So my pure baking soda is 1, and it says how many liters, we don't know, so that's X. Should be added to 200 liters, so right away we know the amount of 30%, which is 0.30, to get, which is what we want, a 60% baking soda solution, so 0.60. So we know that this is going to be X plus 200, and then we keep going. So 1 times X is 1X. 0.30 times 200 is 60. Here we're going to distribute because we have a plus sign, so 0.6x plus 0.6 times 200 is 120. And remember we set it up the same way every time. So 1x plus 60 equals 0.6x plus 120. So I always like to move my smallest x first, my smallest variable, so mine is 0.6x minus 0.6x. This goes away. And I get 0.4, I believe. 0.4x plus 60 equals 120. So now I'm going to subtract both sides by 60 to get my x alone. And I get 0.4x equals 60, 120 minus 60, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 0.4, and I get x equals 150. So then I read my question, how many liters of pure baking soda? Well, pure is 100, which is 1, and x represents my amount, so it's just 150 liters. Okay, number 19. It says 2 planes leave BWI and travel in opposite directions. So right away I know that I'm dealing with motion, and I'm going to draw my motion table. Okay, and then I know that 2 planes are leaving. So here's the airport. They're traveling in opposite directions. Okay, and it says one travels at 350 miles per hour, and the other travels at 325 miles per hour. So I know my rates are 350 and 325. And how many hours will the 2 planes be? A total of 1,800 miles apart. So we're trying to figure out when they're 1,800 miles apart. Well, it doesn't say they left at the same time, but I'm assuming that they did because it doesn't specify, so my time is just x. Okay, and we are going to multiply these. So 350 times x is 350x. 325 times x is 325x. So this is just, the distance is represented by those two things. And then 1,800 is also a distance. So we know that we want to know when the first plane and the second plane's total distance is 1,800 miles. Therefore, total distance is going to be 1,800. Therefore, I'm going to add the two distances. So I get 350 plus 325, which is 675x. Divide both sides by 675. And I get 2.6 repeating. Okay, well, my question is in how many hours? Well, time is X, but 2.6 repeating does not make sense for time. So remember that first number is your hours, so I know 2 hours. And I need to figure out minutes. So again, we did this on a different problem, but again, same thing. You're going to do 0.6 because that's your decimal all the way across the screen. That's what represents repeating. And anytime you have a decimal and you're trying to figure out minutes, you just multiply it by 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour. So I know it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Okay, last one. Tim invested some money in 2 plans. So right away I know that I'm building the investment table. Okay, so principal, rate, time, income. So it says plan 1 is an APR of 6%. So I just know that the first plan is 6%, which if I did 6% as a decimal, that's 0.06, so that's my rate. And plan 2 is 11%. So if I move that, that is 0.11 as a decimal. If he invested $8,000 more in plan 1, well, do we know how much he invested in plan 2? No. So this is my X. And how would I represent $8,000 more? You're just going to add it. So $8,000 more in plan 1 than in plan 2, and earned an annual income of $20,370. How much did he invest at 11%? So we have no idea how much he invested at 11%, which is what we just figured out too. So X is my 11%. And it says annual income, so I know time is 1. If he doesn't specify time, 6 months, 2 years, you always put a 1. Okay, and the best part about these is they're always set up the same. We're going to do the top, multiply the 3 boxes, so X plus 8,000. Times 0.06 times 1 plus the bottom, X times 0.11 times 1 equals my total, 2370. Okay, and remember, you're going to break these 2 pieces apart and simplify each side. Well, 0.06 times 1 is just 0.06, so we can ignore the 1. And we're going to distribute backwards because there's a plus sign here. So 0.06 times X is 0.06X. I'm going to bring down that plus sign in the middle. And I do 0.06 times 8,000. And I get 480. Bring down that plus sign in the middle. 0.11 times 1 is just 0.11. 0.11 times X is 0.11X. Equals 21370. Oh, 20370, sorry. And now we solve. So we know that we have like terms because this has an X and this has an X. This does not, and this does not, but here's my equal sign. So 0.06 plus 0.11. I've seen a lot of mistakes with my decimals, especially when there's a 0, so please be careful. So I get 0.17x plus 480 equals 20370. So now that my x's are combined, I'm going to get rid of what doesn't have an x. So minus 480, minus 480. I get 0.17x equals 19890. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 0.17. I'm running out of space. And I get x equals 117, 1, 2, 3 zeros. Now before I box that, I have to figure out what my question is asking. Well, it says how much did he invest at 11%? Well, this is how much is invested for 11%, so it's just x. So he invested 117,000 at 11%. Now, what if the question was, how much did he invest at 6%? Would this be my answer? No, we would have to plug it in to find that answer. So we're actually going to do that. I know it didn't ask, but cough, cough, hint, hint on your test. It might be asking for the other one. So X is this plus 8,000. So it's 125,000. So like I said, I know it didn't ask for both, but you always have to read the question because it could be wanting the other one.